Hi, everybody, and welcome to Buzzing About Romance. I am Leah, and I am bringing you a quick shot of romance author edition. And today I'm welcoming author Eloisa James to the podcast. Hello.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for having me.
It is a pleasure to have you. Um, we are going to be talking about Hardly a Gentleman, your new book that is coming. But before we get to Hardly a Gentleman, we're going to do some get to know you questions.
Okay, I'm here.
You're here for it.
I'm here for it.
Okay, so what initially drew you to historical romance as an author?
Well, it's what I loved when I was in, high school and reading
Hmm.
romance. But also I'm a Shakespeare professor in my other life, and so
Okay.
I spend a lot of time just teaching people who are, teaching plays, which are people walking and talking in the past. So it's a lot easier for me to think about people walking in the past than it is maybe for others who aren't quite as, drowning in Renaissance drama. Not that I
Hmm.
write in the 1600s, I write in the 1800s, but still.
What made you make the like why Shakespearean? Like,
Drama. Well,
yeah.
yeah, you know how life is. You make a decision and one thing leads to another. And I had a job in after I graduated in California, working for an engineering company doing software development. And I was like, I really like England. I really like rain. I really like
Uh-huh.
English men. And so I applied for a 2-year job, a 2-year position over there. And
Uh-huh.
I thought, well, I liked Shakespeare. I took one class in college, two classes. And
Hmm.
I loved it when I got there. So then I came back and did a PhD in America.
That's
But,
so you designed software to start out with though.
it was, back then, yeah, it was very basic. It was like basically customer service
But
type.
it wasn't basic back then.
No, it was real trial and error.
That's that's fascinating. That is one thing that I really enjoy about these author interviews that I get to do is like talking to people about like their past lives and things they do outside of being author. And if there are a lot of authors who are very fortunate, like that they can author all the time, like that is like their full-time job and like that's what they really enjoy. But it's always fun to talk to different authors who like they are still doing their other job because like they love it so much and like how they got to that and just the different journeys of the authors is just so fascinating to me.
I think it has a very good effect on my writing because I'm
Uh-huh.
I'm with 18, 19, 20-year-olds all the time.
Yeah.
And if you're writing romance over a long period of time, which I have, right? My first book is, I have 30 books. Um,
Hmm.
you need to have a sense of where people are in terms of relationships between people, between men and women, but how do they feel about consent? All those kind of things could
Hmm.
pass me by if I was just sitting around in my apartment, like watching Friends or something. But I'm
Yeah.
in the classroom with people saying, Hamlet's a real jerk. And you figure out how they're thinking differently than my students did a decade ago, and all of that
Uh-huh.
gets into the books.
Well, that's the thing too. Like the world's thinking has changed so much in the past like 10 to 15 years. Like I mean, especially so like prior to that, but like the last 10 to 15 years, like just the thought process and a lot of things has changed so vastly.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I mean, no one ever really loved Hamlet, but they used to say, oh, he's so suicidal. Now they're like, he's such a sexual harasser. I'm like,
Hmm.
hey, it's just interesting. Like the plays exist to be read by the generation that's learning them. They are
Right.
incredibly mutable. That's why they've survived. So
Hmm.
I'm lucky.
So when you were deciding to become an author, what made your like what pushed you to write that first manuscript and like publish that first book?
I needed to pay off my student loans. I mean, I loved romance. I had always loved romance, but I did not meet an Englishman. I came back and I went to graduate school and I met an Italian, my husband, Alessandro Vittori, and
Uh-huh.
Italians do not have student debt because
Oh, that would be
college is
nice.
pretty much free there. So, but I did. And
Yeah.
so we got married and we had one baby and he was like, we can't afford another baby. You have this, $30,000 in student loan debt, which was a tremendous amount at the time. Now,
Hmm.
unfortunately, people have so much more.
Oh, I
But
know, it's
I,
ridiculous.
I thought, okay, I'll write something and I'll pay it off. And I wrote a book and it went up for auction and it sold for a couple $1,000s over my student loans. But I had to write 3 books for that.
Yeah.
So that was the start of my career. And I realized it was so much fun. I love
Yeah.
it. I love writing. It's such a joy. So.
Is there a piece of advice that you, like current writer you, would give past writer you?
I used to be so upset when I got bad reader reviews in particular.
Hmm.
If anyone wants to go back and look at my first book, Potent Pleasures, I would get one 5-star review and one 1-star review. And they were all talking about POV, which is point of view, which I'd never heard of because I never took any creative writing classes. So I was like,
Uh-huh.
POV, I had no idea. And I would cry. And then my husband was like, look, you got to stop looking at this. And real,
Hmm.
like those are readers talking to readers. And so if I was looking back, I would say, hey, somebody's going to hate this book, and it'll be the same book that someone else will love.
Right.
And it'll be the same book that somebody will write and say, my sister was in hospice and I read it aloud to her and she laughed. I mean, what
Yeah.
more do you want? So what if 500 people hate it if that one person laughed? I mean, that's an
Hmm.
exaggerated example, but
No, but
every
it touched that one person in a really profound way. And it's like that all like that kind of outweighs all the bad.
it does. Romance is a genre for pleasure and escape. And
Hmm.
if you can help someone escape a really tough time,
Yeah.
then it's a success.
Hmm. So is there a subgenre of romance that you enjoy reading, or do you still read a lot of historicals themselves
Don't read historicals. I can't. My
because
voice
you
is
write
kind of
them?
leaky. So, like, I love Sarah MacLean's books, but if I start reading Sarah MacLean, particularly when I'm writing one of my own, suddenly my
Uh-huh.
ones will become tougher and like thinking about dynamite, and it's just not. I have to stay in my lane. So
Uh-huh.
I write, mine are more farcical than hers. So I read a tremendous amount of sci-fi romance. I read contemporary romance. I read
Hmm.
fantasy. I read less fantasy than kind of fantastical romance,
Yeah.
like monster romance is fun. I
I
find
love a good
everything
monster.
fun. Contemporary romance is great. I've got
Yeah.
tons of books here. Sonali Dev's new book. There's something about Mira, which is sort of more women's fiction. I love those
Hmm.
too, as long as they have a romance in them.
Yeah. I mean, I'm the same way. Like when I was growing up, I read a little bit of everything
Mhm.
because I mean, my parents were both big readers and my grandfather was a big reader. And so like we were always really encouraged to read. And like my mom got the boxes of Harlequins every month.
Oh,
And
yeah.
so I
Well,
would dive into those babies, but it was like there was such a wide variety of books in our house growing up. Like we had like my brother was a huge Stephen King fan, so like we
mhm.
had those books, and we had the Nancy Drews and the Trixie Beldens and like all of
I
those.
loved
So
all those. Yeah, and Harlequin Presents. I didn't mention that, but give me a bad day and I get a Harlequin Presents and go to the
uh,
bathtub and it's heartwarming. It's
it is.
some
Well, there's
great.
just something about that because the ones my mom would get, like they were all blue covers. Like sometimes they were the intrigues and things like that. But there's just something about when you see that blue cover that's very like it's very comforting.
Mhm. It is. I don't know how your listeners feel, but I'm starting to think that we need to go back to like paintings on the cover of books because those
Oh,
I
I
used
would
to love
love
those so
that.
much. Like I could recognize my favorite painter or illustrator. This is before AI. Like I figured
Hmm.
maybe we need to move away from AI. And we said, let me just mention that in case you're thinking of ordering Hardly a Gentleman, I commissioned my own step back oil painting of my
Did
characters.
you?
I did, yes. And if you order from the Rift Bodice in either location, they will
Okay.
send you a gorgeous reproduction of this oil painting that I think is wonderful and I think should be on the cover. But anyway, it's the two of my characters in one of my favorite scenes in the library. So very sexy,
Ooh,
very tender.
I like that. Well, and I really enjoy the cover for this book. Like it's very simple, but not at the same time. But it's like it's an understated cover, but it's still everything that you want and need, like in a true romance cover. I just really, it's just the coloring is just very well chosen, and I just really enjoy looking at it.
I don't feel like I should say thank you because I didn't, but HarperCollins art department thanks you.
Well, excuse me. Um, so do you have any writing rituals or habits that help you stay focused and productive?
I eat an awful lot when I'm writing. I'm like, okay, I've got today. My goal is 5 pages, but if my attention slips, I go and eat something. So, you have to control yourself in those situations. So I just have all these things like, okay, you can have carrots. Okay, you can have an orange. Because I don't know, it's something about um, if I start eating chocolate, I'll just eat way too much chocolate. So
You
I
have
have
to
sort
choose
of
a healthy
it's like
option.
a planned, yes. It's like planned eating, and then at the end I get chocolate because it's hard to concentrate, especially as you get into a book, you're holding the entire plot in your head. So where were
Hmm.
the characters when they started, where at the end, I'm writing the fourth book in this series called The Accidental Duchesses, right? I'm sorry, The Accidental Brides right now. And I have to keep where the character, the heroine was introduced, 2 books back, like how
Right.
it changed, what these other characters are being referred to. One of them's falls in love in Hardly a Gentleman, she's referred to in this book, where are we exactly in time? And it's hard to write things that are funny. That takes a lot of concentration, a lot of rewriting.
Yeah. Do you plan out your series before you write them? Like I know you're traditionally published, so like there is a little bit more detail that needs to go into that rather than like some of the indie authors that we have, but do you just kind of let the words flow as you go?
I do, yeah. I mean, I'm lucky. I've been writing so long, and yes, I'm traditionally published, but they don't ask me for a synopsis or anything like that. And if I did, frankly, it would be one big lie because when you actually start writing, like
Uh-huh.
all things happen. Like today, this morning, I was writing about my hero and heroine, and this is, in the fourth book in this series. And
Okay.
all of a sudden, the end said, "Oh, he's betrothed. He has a fiance." I was like, "Oh, he has a fiance." Those kind of fun things where I'm like, "Oh yeah, of course he has a fluffy, pretty fiance, like a fluffy chick, like a chick with greedy eyes." Um, Perfect. But it wouldn't have been in my synopsis. She didn't exist until
Because she just came to you.
she just showed up. Yeah, and she's going to be really evil, so it's going to be fun.
Oh, that is going to be fun. I do like an evil like character, but
Yeah.
that's just me. So let's talk Hardly a Gentleman. So this is book one in The Accidental Brides.
Book two.
Oh, book two. I
Yeah.
apologize.
And now the first one is called Viscount in Love.
Okay.
So in the first book, Viscount in Love, you meet the heroine, Clara, but it doesn't really matter. Um, One thing you learn about her in the first book is that she likes making reticules or little bags that are with
Uh-huh.
faces on them and whiskers.
Well, and honestly, in this book, like it makes an appearance and it's a very
Mhm.
like e exceptional appearance because she whacks the prince with it and pokes him with a whisker.
Yes, she whacks the Prince Regent, who, by the way, was known for being a horrible sexual harasser. So she
Uh-huh.
just whacks him right across his fat stomach. And then, yeah, he's very pissed.
Yeah,
So,
so this book comes out April 29th, 2025. It's a forced marriage, a little bit of hidden identity, but that's not really though. Like she
no,
tries. She tries so hard to pretend that she's this housekeeper, but she does not do a good job of that.
he
And
knows.
it
The name
does,
Caesar, he says, she's a lady.
she's a lady.
There's a lady, and there's some guy is going to be chasing after her because if we're talking tropes, it's a hero falls first book for sure.
Yeah. Well, and let me tell you, so when I was reading the book, you have a character named Mr. Cobbledick.
Yeah.
So but when I was reading it, I read it as Gobbledick the first time.
No.
And so every time it was on the page, I was like, I giggled, which it's funny in like
Yeah.
in general. But then I was like, wait, that's not a G. That's totally a C. But it was still a funny name. So I giggled every time it was on the page.
I like making if so just to tell everyone he's a coachman. That's not the hero.
No,
Um,
it's not.
but he's a nice coachman. He's a funny
He
coachman. So,
is.
yeah, I wanted to give him sort of a silly name.
well, it definitely worked out. Like I just well, and he like really takes Clara under his wing and like
Yes.
protects her like as
Yeah.
they're going through the journey from England to Scotland and
Yeah.
like she like and he realizes from the get-go like she is not this Mrs. Potts lady that she claims to be and he just goes along with it and he's like okay if that's what we're gonna do we're just gonna go but she that was one thing I liked about Clara she's a very strong character. Like she knows what she wants, she knows who she is, like, and she's not willing to change herself for anybody. Like her mom was not a very nice person
No,
and
just to give
didn't,
people a little backstory, after she slaps the Prince Regent, she is, basically sent to Scotland to live with
yeah,
elderly aunt, but she decides she wants to be a housekeeper and go to a Scottish castle instead. So she jumps into a carriage bound for a Scottish castle where she meets a laird fishing
yeah.
naked in the stream. And yes, she is very strong and she knows what she wants. I like her so much.
I liked her so much too, because a lot of times, like, I'm not a huge historical romance reader. Like, it's just, it's hard for me to find some that I like. And it's not that I haven't tried, it's just, it's one of those things where they don't draw me in the way that like other books do. But and that has been part of my issue with some of them is the heroines are just so naive and like sheltered and not in that's not always a bad thing, but it's like it's so much sometimes. And she did not like, yeah, she's a little sheltered because like, I mean, she's a lady and she's been out in society and nobody has like given her like any indication of marriage before. So she's kind of an embarrassment to her mother, but she's not. But she didn't have that naive sense about her.
No, because I don't think very many women actually had that. I mean, obviously some did, but
Hmm.
for someone like Clara, who's been on the season, so-called, this is her fourth season, she would not be, a blushing virgin too much. And,
Right.
but that naivete, part of it is one of the jokes of the book, right? Because when she sees
Hmm.
the hero naked in the freezing Irish stream,
Well, yeah,
her
that,
only experience of male accoutrement is looking at a Roman vase, and she's like, "Oh, that's not too bad." So it's like one of those jokes that you're
uh-huh.
waiting to find, because of course when she sees
Well,
it, actually,
and
it's
that does come full circle later in the
yeah,
book. And it's like
like
that
what
whole
is that?
reaction was so funny. Like that's not gonna work.
Right. Right. So
But
when I'm talking about things being funny, like it's hard to write those kind of things. You have the idea, but then you have to pare it down and write it again and again and again and again
mhm,
to make sure that the reader gets the joke, is waiting for the joke, feels the joke, laughs out loud.
yeah.
It's work, yeah.
So Kalen is a widower. He has been a widower for a few years now, and he has basically let his castle. When we first met him, I was like, "Ooh, this guy's a little bit feral," and I kind of like
He's a
that.
wild man.
Because I mean, he likes to fish in the loch and in his
Yeah,
naked glory. Like
all
he's not a
together.
big fan of the clothes. Like he does not care if like there are rats in his kitchen and
Only
there's
one rat.
well,
Yeah,
one is one too many.
yes.
If there's one, there's others. Like
There's probably babies somewhere.
but
Yeah.
so he just has not cared about like really anything around him. Like he does his work, he fishes, and like he cares about his sister and his nephew and his brother-in-law, but they're that's about it. So he comes across a little feral when you first meet
Yeah.
him.
Yeah, he's one of those people. And I think there are more men like this than women, but his wife dies and he just kind of, there's no one taking care of the house. He can't
Yeah.
keep a housekeeper in there. And it genuinely doesn't bother him. So he mostly
Hmm.
fishes in the stream and cooks the fish in the outside, fireplace. And when she comes in, my heroine comes in, Clara is like, what is this is disgusting. What's going
Yeah.
on? It's like, oh. As far as he's concerned, he has his library full of books and he has the stream full of fish, and that's a
There's
perfect
nothing else
life.
that he needs.
Yeah. He's
Well, and Clara like is very well read, so like the she is very excited about all the books. Like she is a lady, but is like, I will learn how to do these things and I will create like a healthy place for you to live instead of the filth that you are creating. And so that is a big part of like the first part of the book is like her establishing like a staff and bringing people in and their relationship like evolving to more, but she holds back a lot because she's like, I want love. I want that relationship where they want me for me and to love me. Like, I don't want to get married if I'm not going to get that.
Yeah. Yeah. She's seen enough, right?
Hmm.
I mean, one key thing is she also makes him clean. She's
Yeah.
like, no one else, you and I are cleaning. And I think that's really good for him. That's certainly how I run, whatever, how my marriages worked,
Uh-huh.
doing all this work by myself.
Yeah.
So, yeah, so she's very modern in some ways, I will say.
Hmm.
Because when you're writing historical romance, you're always writing to the past and to the present.
Yeah.
And it's unlikely that an honorable young lady would have made this man do work. But she was such a strong character and such a strong person that in some way the story just takes over.
Yeah. Well, and if she hadn't had that direction and made him do those things, like I don't think their relationship would have been as natural as it was. Like the fact that like he basically was willing to do anything for her. He was like her little puppy who like
Yeah.
she said sit and he said yes and she said jump
Well,
and he said how high.
okay, he's an alpha puppy. Let's just say that.
He he is, yes, but like he's a puppy for her but nobody
Yeah.
else.
No, exactly. I mean, it's hero falls first, and he's like, I see her. She's
Hmm.
fantastic.
Yeah.
I want her in all
Yeah.
ways. I'll do anything to keep her. And I realize some man is probably chasing her from England. She's wearing this wedding ring, so he's like, I may have to go down to England and like kill her husband because
Uh-huh.
he was abusive. Um, he's willing to do anything, including murder. Luckily, she doesn't have a husband chasing her.
She
So,
doesn't.
no.
And I mean, it all kind of works out. But so, but there's such a great cast of characters that you've created too. Like we have Alfie, the nephew, who has his silky chicken that he just adores. And his character is so fun because he just loves on these animals and he doesn't want to let them go and he carries the chicken around and her name is Wilhelmina and it in a silky like they're just little puff balls. So they're like really soft, fluffy, and just adorable. But like his sister is actually a very strong character as well. And like you can tell that like she is strong and brings Clara under her wing and is like, you do what you need to do. But also understand my brother is kind of an idiot. So what
Yeah.
you don't think he's feeling, he actually is feeling. He just doesn't know how to express it.
There are historical romances that take place in ballrooms. I mean, think about Bridgerton, right? So a large
Hmm.
part of the plot of Bridgerton, and I love those books and the TV show, is is reflecting off of social conventions.
Hmm.
And I've written a bunch of those books. I love them. But this is not a ballroom book, right? This is
No.
set in a decrepit castle in
Yeah.
Scotland with a half-naked laird. And so that gave me a lot more, I could build a little world really and make it quite fierce and visible in the same
Hmm.
space because I didn't have to do the whole polite society and
Right.
anything like that. So yeah, they can have these very
Well,
vivid characters.
and it almost gives you that small, like, I mean, it's historical, so there's no small towns really at that point, but
Yeah.
it gives you that small town feel, like when they go into
Yeah.
the village and they're interacting with everybody, like when they have their wedding and like the reception afterwards and everybody's flying her with all the whiskey and she's like, it's really gross, but I'm gonna drink it and say really great things about it. So you have that small town like feel to it, but in the historical world, which I
Yeah.
thought was a really interesting blend.
Well, I grew up in a small town, in
Yeah.
Minnesota, and I had a chicken named Wilhelmina.
Did
So
you really?
when you're writing a historical writing, anything, right? You have got to put parts of yourself into the book. There's no question.
Hmm.
And I would view my high school prom as like Clara's failures and humiliations on you know what I mean? But
Uh-huh.
that sense in which everyone in the community knows each other and
Hmm.
the person is coming in and she's such success. So
Yeah.
that wanted her to be somewhere where people are like, wow, she's amazing because she'd been rejected
Hmm.
back home in London, because she didn't fit in, because she was, her breasts were too fantastic for London, basically. You're supposed to wear those tiny little dresses or the tiny little bodices and.
Uh-huh. Well, and then she comes to this like new area and like she is living with him and there's all of that little bit of chaos there, but then she has to live up to the expectation of like the dead wife at the same time. And like as the book progresses, we find out there's a little bit more to like Callan and Isla's relationship than you realize, but there's just so much like Isla's mom is like talking about how this was her castle and all these things. And so Claire's like, well, I have to live up to the expectation of that. She's like, but I'm not her. Like, I'm not this fanciful, like sparkly lady. Like, I am who I am. And I like to make like little cats and mice that I can carry around.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, you obviously you understood the core of it because it's so hard. I mean, Isla is someone who would have done beautifully in London, right? She's so
Yeah.
pretty and she's so feminine um and so for Clara to get paired with someone who is viewed as having the greatest love affair of all of like the Highlands with this
Yeah.
gorgeous woman who died incredibly young.
Yeah.
That's like her worst nightmare. I mean,
Uh-huh.
sometimes you want to do that in a romance, right? You want the reader to look up from the book and go, "Oh, this is just awful. This is not what I wanted for Clara," right?
Uh-huh.
I don't want Clara to have to fall in love with this guy or be with this guy who's got this great love story. I want her to be loved for herself, and that's what she wants.
Yeah.
But so then you have to read the book to find out what happens.
You do. And it's funny. It's so funny. Like I like as I was reading it, like I giggled like every time Alfie was on the page. Like there was just little things that he did. And the
Yeah.
fact that like they encouraged this chicken love and like a dog has puppies and he's like, "Oh, I want to take the puppy home." And they're like, "We don't know if he'll get along with the chicken. So like maybe we shouldn't do that." It's just like a lot of these little pieces where there's just so much care for each of like the members of the family.
Yeah, I try to make it as real as possible. Um,
Oh,
so
it was a delight to read.
thank you.
You're
That's
welcome.
great, especially for someone who doesn't read that much historical romance. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, I really really enjoyed like the way that these characters played out and they developed and the way their relationship like it ebbed and flowed and they had like a couple moments like there's a big moment like towards the end where like something happens and I'm not going to tell you because you have to read it and I was like I could totally see her doing it
Yeah,
and then his reaction to it like I was expecting like a big reaction but it was bigger than I anticipated at the same
right.
time but there's just so
Yeah.
many little nuances to the story that like grab you in.
Thank you. Wow, this is making my day. Thank you. What fun.
So what's next?
Well, what's next? So, Hardly a Gentleman comes out at the end of April, and then the sequel to it
Okay.
is called The Last Lady B. And
Okay.
that will come out in January. And so there is a part in the story where a very young English wife shows up who's married to a man in his 70s. And she's his, there've been three wives beforehand who've
Okay.
all died. It's her story. So
Oh.
that's an interesting one. Yes, because she's going to the Highlands and they're going for Christmas and the abbey where they're going is supposed to be haunted by his three previous wives. And she's looking forward to meeting ghosts. She's like, an intrepid young woman, but I think it's a very funny book. And I think of it as like slightly gothic, like gothic adjacent, because it's
Uh-huh.
supposed to be the ghosts and so on. And I think, again, I did the same thing, a very small, um, sort of a very small canvas, just
Uh-huh.
the Abbey and like who's in the Abbey, including a very bad-tempered solicitor, is in the Abbey and she meets him on day one. And all kinds of things happen, including and I'm not breaking anything here, but her husband dies right away. He's in his 70s anyway, so out he goes. But it's just really fun getting that growing a group of characters. I think I have really interesting characters there,
Uh-huh.
and including a sort of a young girl who's yeah reminds me of the young girl on the Munsters. So
I
yes,
do like me some monsters.
yes, I think it's fun, and so now I'm writing the fourth book in that series.
That sounds very intriguing. I like a little like ghost
Yeah.
story sideline in a book.
Funny, funny, funny ghost, but
Funny
yes,
ghosts,
I love
yes.
ghost.
Well, thank you so much for taking time out of your day to stop by and talk to me about your books and your craft. I appreciate it so much.
Yeah, it was such a pleasure. Anytime. If I can get you reading another historical romance, I'd love to come back. So
I definitely will be diving into the rest of this series because I really enjoyed the characters a lot.
fabulous. Okay, thank you so much. Bye,
And
everybody.
until next time, happy reading, everybody.
Find us on Instagram at Buzzing About Romance or on Twitter at Buzzing Romance. If you like the podcast, please leave a review. If you'd like to support us directly, join the Bookcase and Coffee Patreon and receive exclusive content only available to Patreon members. Check out bookcaseandcoffee.com for our on-the-shelf show notes.